All right, let's get our Facebook groups in here. Okay. Man, spinning wheels taking a bit today. There we go, 1 and 2. Give it a second to breathe. Oh, it's good coffee. Welcome in, everybody. It is the 7th of February, and I'm Nick Kendell. This on today's Broncos for Breakfast. I am running solo as Scott has begun his much-deserved vacation. He's going to be out there in the Dominican and the Belize doing his favorite thing in the world, besides hanging out with you guys, of course, and hanging out with me, is he'll be out there in Belize, I believe, Dominican area, doing snorkeling, and I'm riding solo today, so I didn't want to leave you guys hanging. I obviously did a solo show last Monday. It was fine. I'll probably go a little bit shorter today because I got things to do. And just a general announcement off the top is that Scott and I will be AWOL, I guess. Not really AWOL, but we'll be out of service from tomorrow until the 16th. So we'll be back on the 16th. I'm going to be in Hawaii with a vacation myself. I haven't taken a true vacation that hasn't been for like a family member's wedding or friend's wedding or Christmas since before Rona. So my wife and I are heading out to Hawaii for a weekend. Cannot wait, but that means I'm going to leave you guys hanging. Don't miss me too much. Let's say hello to everybody in here. Jeremy Sean saying, morning, Nick. Hope you had a good birthday. Thank you, Jeremy. I did have a good birthday. It was low key. Didn't do too much. Got a bunch of stuff ready to go on vacation. So I'm extending, the birthday vibes are extending out all throughout next week when we are in Hawaii. So thank you. Greg Penner got you a gift that costs $17 million a year. His name is Sean. I've always wanted a Sean for my birthday, so appreciate that. Thank you, the Walton Penner family group. We got Kevin Gray in the house saying good morning, Broncos country. Good to see you, Kevin. We got Jan coming in. Hey, guys, good to see you, Jan. We got Nathan Popel coming in here saying Hard Knocks, Denver Broncos. You guys could correct me in the chat here if I'm wrong on this one, but I'm pretty sure that the Broncos would not qualify for Hard Knocks this year. You have to have a returning coaching staff. So this season will not be qualified for the Broncos will not qualify for Hard Knocks, but the year after they could. So we'll see what happens here. We'll see how interesting they are. I mean, if the Broncos move on from Wilson, then maybe they're not as much an interesting of a candidate with just Sean Payton and kind of a rebuild there. But we'll see what happens. Good to see you, Nathan. We got Tofu coming in saying, I was at the camp that the cost for Payton was too high and that you didn't pay it if he wasn't your first preferred option. While I feel that was true, now Payton is a head coach and time to get on board. Okay, I totally understand what you're saying here, Tofu. Yeah, he's the coach. Broncos made the trade for him. They're bringing a stability into the position, somebody who knows what they're doing, who knows how to run a tight ship as well. It's not just the offensive mind, it's the whole operation of what a football team needs to do to operate at a high level. So, yeah, I mean, get on board. We can have our gripes, and I'm not going to fault you if you wanted somebody else. If you're crossing your arms and say you wanted Dan Quinn, if you're upset because the whole bounty gate thing and bringing him in, if you're upset for giving up the draft capital, I mean, I'm not here to tell you how to think. I'm just here to give you information to hopefully inform how you think somewhat and give you my perspective as well and hear from you guys. But yeah, get on board. I'm excited for it. I absolutely, one of my favorite things coming out of the press conference yesterday, and we'll say hello to Kevin first. Good morning, Nick and Broncos country. Nick, have a great vacation. I'll miss you and Scott, my favorite pod. Thank you so much. I saw, hey, you guys got to keep me in line here on this one. Scott says, I have a side jar. I saw there was a review on iTunes yesterday that said that Nick says 100% too much. And I'm like, you know what? Damn it. You are 100% right. So I'm working out some other ones. Indubitably 100p, 110%. Yas Queen. So let me know. I just need some better responses out here, but I don't want to be just a 100% guy on here. So keep me accountable on that. But anyway, back to the press conference. Sean Payton, how this is so unserious for me, but how funny is it that the Broncos and Sean Payton, it was Tie-gate. We had him wearing an orange tie, orange pocket square, whatever. He was trying to send a message to Broncos country. Now, I don't know if how much weight I put in that, if he's just being silly about it, but that to me is absolutely hilarious. Like, I'm wearing a navy blue spider jacket. It's because I have arachnophobia, so it's over my heart. So that way, I don't know. It's just so silly, but absolutely hilarious. One of my favorite things that came out of the press conference yesterday. Tofu says he won me over the press conference for sure. He was good on that. Colin Wood coming in saying that I was too, not in the camp for getting Payton. But we've done such a poor job with our first draft picks over the years that now I feel like it was a good move. Payton seems like the realest deal we've had in a coach in a long time. I would argue that he is probably the biggest splash the Broncos have ever made in the coaching position. The Broncos, obviously, after enough time has passed, Mike Shanahan became a big deal. But when the Broncos brought him in, he wasn't this, Hall of Fame, currently on a Hall of Fame path as a head coach. So Sean Payton, big, huge deal for the Broncos. And I hate to say the phrase bring an adult into the room because they did have adults in there before. It just really didn't work out. But bringing in somebody with so much credit to their name, with so much experience, that when they come in and they say this is how it's going to be done, everybody should listen, and going to hopefully treat everybody in that locker room the same and get everybody pulling in the same direction. Obviously, there was some schisms in that locker room last year. There's been schisms in the locker room dating back to 2016 since Peyton Manning's left. Now you have somebody in there that is not just, one side of the ball, although he's an offensive mind, but not just one side of the ball, and hopefully will control the whole operation of the team. Kevin Grace, and I was pleasantly surprised. I love his philosophy and get her done attitude and no hype. Yeah, I didn't know he was a Chicago guy. Now it makes sense. He's a Midwest boy at heart. Former quarterback from Eastern Illinois, of course, and also you had Tony Romo from Eastern Illinois, and there was somebody else that he mentioned from Eastern Illinois as well. I cannot recall who it was, but yeah, the Panthers? I think they're Panthers. Anyway, I digress. Mark coming in saying Russ lost a personal trainer. I'm sure his private office is next. Sean treating everyone the same. Nice start. Russ can work with whoever he wants to on the offseason and my headphones. There we go. In the offseason and in on Tuesdays, the off day or whatever, that's fine. But having his own personal trainer in the building, that does sound like that's out the door for the Broncos. Sean Payton essentially said, like, I've never heard of that before. Like, he's always heard of the Broncos doing that, but he's like saying that's never been a part of my process, and that's not going to happen here. So good. Sean Payton's, controlling the coaches in the building and not just, giving Russell Wilson anything he wants, making him earn it. He's got to earn credit back in the Denver Bronco building. No doubt about that. It's been, it was a rough go for him last year. Jason O'Neill coming in saying, good morning, Broncos country. How's life and how are we feeling post Payton presser? Feeling pretty good. I had a good day yesterday on my birthday. Enjoyed it. Getting ready for a vacation here. Ready to get out of Seattle for a little bit. No nonsense, all business. Body of work speaks for itself. Now address the offensive line and assemble a veteran staff. Yeah, we got to get after it. We're going to get into a little bit about the defensive coaching staff as well. So we're going to figure out who that's going to be. What's the interview? What's the latest news here? Facebook user coming in. Good morning, Nick. Not sure who you are, but God bless you. Good morning to you. Michael Ronquillo coming in saying, good morning, Nick, on Broncos for breakfast. Appreciate you, Michael. Tim Durr coming in. Morning, Nick. Always great to see you, Tim. Dylan, our guy Dylan Von Arks, saying, sup, Broncos country. Make sure you guys hit that like button on the way in. Way more eyeballs than likes up here, guys. Get on it. And say, share on all platforms and subscribe if you haven't already. Enjoy vacation, says Dominique. Much deserved. Yeah, I'm excited to get out there. Going to do some night snorkeling with manta rays. I didn't even know that was a thing. I could not wait for that to happen. Glenn Hare saying, Nick, happy belated birthday. Hawaii should be awesome. We got, oh no, am I freeze? Guys, let me know in the chat if I'm freezing up a little bit. It's getting a little bit slow and clunky on my end from the chat. D Generation X saying, I'm not on the backhoe at 7:30 this morning. Well, I appreciate you not coming in. Wink, wink. Is that what's going on here? But be safe out there, D Generation. We appreciate you coming in. Michaela Israel also coming in saying, good morning. We appreciate you, Michaela. Colton Easton in the house saying, let's go. I love catching it live. We love you joining live. I love the the angry concerning Jesus look picture you got here. It makes me laugh. Good morning, Broncos country. We have hope again. Yeah, we do. K-Hop coming in, asking me some draft questions. Yeah, Scott's not here, so a little bit more of a free-form show today. We'll get into more in Payton, Broncos defensive coordinator, maybe even run a mock draft. But Iowa's James Campbell from linebacker from Iowa, third-round pick. Campbell's a really, really big, lengthy, productive linebacker out of the University of Iowa, the reigning Butkus Award winner. He is not your sideline-to-sideline speedster coverage linebacker that you're looking for there. He's 6'5". He's got incredible length. He's really good in the box. Actually has made some good rangy plays at Iowa this last year, but not from his speed, more from his instincts and his size. So I think he's a step above, maybe even 2 steps above Josie Jewell was coming out of Iowa. And I'm biased. I got my Iowa hat back here. I need to get an Iowa helmet at some point. But I think he's going to go middle of the second, late second. I will tell you that the coaches at Iowa absolutely adore the man. James Campbell, he is probably, just one of the hardest workers they've had come through that program under Kirk Ferentz, an adult in the room. He's he didn't reach Josie Jewell's stats because Josie, I think, played Josie played more years. James Campbell had a bout of mono that caused him to miss almost an entire season because he lost a lot of weight. But he's been incredible at Iowa. He's always going to be limited. There's a reason you're talking about him in the third round here in terms of his speed and twitch. But in today's NFL, when you're playing lighter box counts, you want guys that are linebackers that are really good in the run game with length. If you're playing in favor of more defensive backs and more speed on the back end, you need your guys who are up front in the spine of the defense to be that much better in the run game and in their instincts and discipline. So I think Campbell's going to be a really good linebacker for a long time. He's not going to confuse anybody for Fred Warner, but really good player. I could go on for a bit about James Campbell. He's a great player and seems like an even better dude. So excited to see where he goes. We got Jackson Barkley saying, happy belated birthday, man. Enjoy your trip. Thanks, Jackson. We got Mandango saying, good morning, Nick. You got this. Go Broncos. I needed that. Tim Durr saying, you and Scott work hard and deserve this vacation. Hope you both stay safe and enjoy it. I am very excited. Volcanoes National Park, doing a lot of hiking and snorkeling. It's going to be great. I've never been to Hawaii, so it'll be a great time. Chase Wellner coming in saying, morning, Nick. We appreciate you. We got emulating Payton putting that foot down. That's good. D-Generation X, you got D-Generation X loves me. But happy belated birthday to me on this one. We appreciate you. D-Generation X with the $5 super saying, I like the way he was talking about all the little details, not just the football side, but all the way around. I mean, when you're talking about an NFL football organization, it is all the way around. It's football. It's not just football, but the nutrition plays into football. The training plays into the football. The mental side of things, mental health plays into football. The what you're doing in the offseason, taking care of yourself, that all plays into the product on the field. So Payton's definitely a CEO type. Broncos have been looking for that. And Cheerio down the wrong pipe, I think there. Yeah, let's excited to see what he will do with the Broncos here as that CEO type. And Michael coming in, a little bit of news yesterday. Broncos announced that they are bringing in former Saints assistant offensive line coach, I believe was his position, Zach Sheaf. I remember Sheaf from the Saints years ago. I think for some reason in my head, he went to play at the University of Indiana, but you guys could correct me on that. I remember him coming out. God, I'm getting that age now. Happy birthday to me. You're another year older. You remember prospects that are now coaches. But yeah, Zach Sheaf was a right tackle for a number of years. Really smart player and an ascending star. I am a little bit surprised that the Broncos didn't bring in potentially Mike Munchak back on the offensive line, given his experience and how good he's been an offensive line coach, or Dan Rauscher, I believe is the name. Maybe Rauscher comes in as the run game coordinator and the tight ends coach like he was in New Orleans this past season. But Zach Sheaf sounds like he's an up-and-coming star, and I really did enjoy the belly aching from the Saints fans that he is leaving New Orleans to join Denver. Means Denver probably got a good one if that's the case. So we'll see how it plays out for them with that new offensive line coach. In my opinion, the offensive line coach, no matter the staff, is the third most important coach on a football team, college too, college especially maybe. But I think it's your head coach is number one. No duh, Nick. After that, it's the coordinator that is the opposite side of the ball of the head coach's experience. So you have obviously Sean Payton is the offensive-minded head coach. Defense coordinator would be number two for me. After that, it's the offensive line coach. So Zach Sheaf, hopefully the Broncos got a good one. We will see how that plays out for the Broncos going forward. He's just so new. You know, he's got good credit and people like him, but until you see it play out, it's really hard to say. Elliot D coming in saying, good morning. You think the Broncos will be looking for a new quarterback too? I do believe they'll be looking for a new quarterback too in here. Partially because, and I'm going to come off as Russell Wilson hater or something, guys. I'm sorry to say that this offseason, but just the reality of the situation is he played bad last season. And the Broncos, if he's looking poor again this year, Sean Payton could say, yeah, it's not my guy going forward, and he could be on his way out. So what does that mean? It means the Broncos could be looking for a new quarterback too, to sit Russell Wilson down the back stretch of the season next season and protect the Broncos from him collecting an injury guarantee on his contract. So I think the Broncos will look for a much better quarterback too, somebody to push him a little bit in the room. I would really like Jacoby Brissett personally. I think he did an incredible job in Cleveland this past season. His offenses were actually pretty good. It was that Cleveland defense that was absolutely horrific that caused that Browns team to be horrible. Yeah, I would really like Jacoby Brissett. We'll see what other names come available, but what Jacoby's did as far as a personality in that Browns locker room, I think was a fantastic story and a job last year. Tim Durr coming in here saying, is Brian Flores really out? I thought I saw somewhere he didn't take the job in Minnesota. Somebody could correct me on that. I woke up and had to get my, my coffee brewing and my breakfast going here and write the lead for this live stream. But is Flores really out? I thought I saw somewhere he took the job, didn't take the job in Minnesota. I saw he did take the job in Minnesota, first announced by Adam Schefter yesterday, and then announced by Ian Rappaport. So Flores would be on his way to Minnesota, unless something's changed. I don't know. Greg Smith, top of the morning, Broncos for breakfast. Good to see you. Elliot D coming in saying, happy born day from Payton, Arizona. Happy trip around the sun. God bless, we're doing. Let's go Broncos saying, what are we doing? Ejiro Evero, Vic Fangio, and Brian Flores all gone. Broncos have an interview today with Brian Desai, who is the former defensive coordinator of the Bears, has been a defensive assistant underneath over in the Seahawks for a few years now, and is a hand-picked guy that I know from asking around. Vic Fangio absolutely adores Desai as an up-and-coming guy in his scheme, and probably if he could peg somebody as his like number one disciple coaching tree guy, it would probably be Sean Desai. So I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, man. I finally just got Ejiro Evero down. Now I'm gonna have to change it to Sean something. But it sounds like he's the guy. He's going to be interviewed today with a Zoom interview for the Broncos, and we can get a little bit into his scheme and what it looks like as well. It's Zach Strief. Great to see him. Maybe I pronounced the name wrong there earlier, but excited to see Zach Strief here in Denver as the offensive line coach. It'll be awesome to see what he does. Ernie Mays in the house. Happy birthday. Thank you, Ernie. We appreciate it. And Tim Durr come in and say, I prefer the dude from Seattle anyway. So, yeah, let's first pull it back to Sean Payton. Maybe I'm the only one on this yesterday, but I really felt like it was a interesting antithesis about a lot of Nathaniel Hackett's press conferences, where he had much more of the details and leaning back on anecdotes than Nathaniel Hackett, bright-eyed, bushy-tail out there. And also the press conference was not really all about, getting Russell Wilson, correcting Russell Wilson. It was about the Broncos team, getting this team right, correcting the small details. And yeah, I think it's going to be really an interesting change here in Broncos country. Again, not so much about Russell Wilson anymore. I would even say to the extent that the press conference somewhat distanced itself from Russell Wilson with Sean Payton yesterday. It wasn't all about Russ. It wasn't about fixing Russ. It wasn't about getting things back on track or that relationship. Russell Wilson is the head coach or the quarterback here, of course, but it does not revolve around him. This is Sean Payton's show, from how he answered the questions to that to about the personal quarterback coach in the building. I would be shocked if the personal office is gone. I wouldn't be shocked if the personal office is gone. I wouldn't be shocked if the excess parking spaces are gone, if his team's passes or whatever access codes were denied. This is going to be an interesting season for Russell Wilson in the power dynamic. We'll see how last year humbled himself, but really interesting. And somebody who's, talked about it a little bit. Shout out to, I think, Stephen Rees is the name. We've always heard that Russell Wilson has compared himself to to Drew Brees, and wanting to be, Sean Payton to bring that style of play out of him. That's not Russell Wilson's game, though. If you guys have joined me at all on here, you've known that I've said that Russell Wilson, and you can see it with your own eyes too, but the shotgun empty set, which means, no running back in the backfield, could be 4 wide receivers, could be 3 wide receivers, 2 tight ends, with the empty set, shotgun, quick pass game offense, Russell Wilson struggles with. I think it was this last year, he was the single worst quarterback in the NFL in empty sets. And I think he was the single worst one in the NFL 2 years ago as well, out of like quarterbacks that had I think 150 snaps. I don't remember the exact qualifiers on that, but Russell Wilson struggled with that. It's not his game. He is not Drew Brees. That's not how his play style works. He is much more of the down the field, moving, sliding the pocket a little bit, using his legs from time to time to create, but vertical shots off of play action. And that's kind of what Drew Brees was earlier in his career with New Orleans. Everybody thinks about the high volume, quick pass game stuff with Kamara, etc. But those 2006 to 2010 New Orleans Saints teams, they really utilized play action, under center, heavy personnel, drop back, and vertical shots with Drew Brees. So that's what I'm expecting from Russell Wilson. Another thing about that era of NFL football is it was heavy in Tampa 2 defenses. We obviously still had a lot of base, but it was the 2 high safety shell defense that was very popular back then, thanks to Tampa Bay's success, thanks to the Chicago Bears' success in that era with Brian Urlacher and Lance Briggs and all those guys. So that was an era where there's a little bit more ability to run the football, use that play action stuff to try to manufacture those deep passes. Then after the Seahawks, we had a big cover 3 revolution, and now we're in the Vic Fangio match quarters, whether it be cover 4, cover 6 defensive era in the NFL right now with more nickel personnel. So what does that mean? I think you could see not only it fitting Russell Wilson's play style better, but the current landscape of the NFL, that heavier personnel, using more 12 and 21, but using that personnel to set up explosive pass plays. It's not just running the ball to run the football to establish anything. It's taking advantage of box counts and opposing teams' personnel up front and dictating their personnel. So we'll see. Let's say hello to some more people in here. Mark Schrader coming in here saying, good morning, Nick. Good to see you, Mark. We appreciate you coming in. I like this comment from Chase saying Russ is now 1 of 53. Yeah, and if last season didn't humble Wilson, then then I don't know if there is any humbling, but hopefully he'll get on board with whatever Payton says in the message there. We got Frank coming in saying, morning, Broncos family. Good to see you. We got a comment here from Jesse saying, Ejiro Evero was too immature to handle the business side and feelings got hurt. Fangio would have been too much focused on the negatives in the past, and Flores is suing us, didn't deserve to be here. I don't know Ejiro Evero personally. If my best friend was fired from an organization and I felt like he did not bear full responsibility for it and was being scapegoated and badmouthed by the organization I was working for, I might want out too, especially because Ejiro Evero was a hot candidate this cycle as not only a potential head coach, but a defensive coordinator. So I don't fault Ejiro Evero for getting out. And I think we can read between the lines now that probably the people he blames most for the situation in Denver and the demise of Nathaniel Hackett are still in Denver. I was told by a source midway through the season when things were really starting to get off the rails, asking about the situation and the power dynamics in that Broncos locker room. And a quote that'll stick with me is Nathaniel Hackett is the least empowered head coach of all time. Obviously, there's some hyperbole there, but the job was too big for him. He was not ready for it. He was over his skis, whatever anecdote or cliche you want to use, but it was not all on Hackett for last season's dysfunction. No doubt about that. We got Jeremy coming in saying Brian Flores is an aggressive defensive coach, but he seemed like he could bring some unwanted drama. Maybe. I don't really even know where the suit is at right now with him suing the league. There would be some talking points about that. And if his defensive struggled, there'd be people in the comment section that would be hounding about it. But probably good that the Broncos moved on. And my own personal opinion is that I'm not really a big fan of the blitz heavy defenses. I know that your typical fan really loves the aggression out there, but with where defenses are right now, I like calculated aggression and I like intelligent placed aggression. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm fine with sending a fifth guy every once in a while, especially using that nickel or a linebacker from time to time. But these cover 0 looks, not really my favorite. I think that I'd rather have safety back there, 2 deep safeties, and I'd rather be playing nickel personnel. I mean, you can say that I fully drink in the Vic Fangio scheme Kool-Aid. Now, there's obviously in any sort of defense, there's always a weakness. For the Broncos in that Vic Fangio defense, the middle of the field has some vacancy in it. It's easier to run on up front. And if you do not have great players up front in that defensive, on the defensive line, sometimes you'll have some issues generating pressure. But Broncos got to lean in and keep improving that defensive line, no doubt, with this. If they are going to bring in Sean Desai, who is interviewing today with the Broncos at, I don't know what time, but a 1-hour Zoom call, saying, Peter's coming in saying thoughts on Russell Wilson or Russ's coach's comment, making it an assumption that Sean hasn't discussed this with Russ. If that's correct, IDK, why he'd make such a definitive statement without having a conversation with him first. If you're talking about, gosh, I can't remember Russell Wilson's personal head coach's name, but if the head coach doesn't want somebody in there, then that's his choice. I mean, he controls the aspects in there. Russ can come with him, plead with him, but it's Sean Payton's team. And I think that was not just not having a discussion with Russell Wilson about it, but also, putting his balls on the table, so to speak. So we'll see. And also we got Urbanology saying, here goes everyone talking about how they didn't want Flores. I really wanted Vic Fangio or Ejiro Evero staying. I'm not really a big fan of the scheme Brian Flores plays, but if they had brought him in, he'd have made it work. He's a really good coach. You can go back to when they first were interviewing Brian Flores. You can find my Twitter on there. Search it up. Nick Flores from Nick Kendell MHH. But I'm not a big fan of the cover zero blitz heavy defenses because they lean into giving up more explosive plays. The other reason is that according to or via EPA per play, Patrick Mahomes is the single best quarterback of all time against the blitz. Patrick Mahomes has struggled more so against the Vic Fangio-esque defenses up front. So I'd be fine with a little bit of both. I think what Ejiro Evero did last season, and we're getting really into the nitty-gritty of scheme here, which I enjoy defensive scheme, but I think what Ejiro Evero did last season was awesome. He did a lot of cover 3 and cover 6 kind of looks out there, sometimes some cover 4 in first and second down, the obvious rundowns, playing a little bit more conservative on those downs to not give up the big plays. And so he'd have 2 deep safeties, and then one would declare itself after the snap as, kind of the strong linebacker walking down into space. The other one would go deep in a cover 3 look, or you'd have, both jettisoning back in a half quarter look on the back end with both the safeties and one cornerback scooting back. On third down, though, Ejiro Evero, he played more of a penny front up front. So with 3 interior defensive linemen, 2 edge rushers, and only 1 linebacker. And he would get aggressive with his looks up front. The Broncos blitzed the 4th most in the NFL last season. And a lot of that came on cover 1 looks with simulated pressures up front or straight up blitzes on third down. So I think that's where I would be the most interested with the Broncos. And Urban saying, yeah, that's what killed the Vikings defense last year. Vikings defense stunk last year with a Vic Fangio style defense underneath Ed Donatel. So again, every single defense has its weaknesses. Defense is also much less, in my opinion, defense is much less about the scheme as it is about the dudes up front. Like you can have, average level players on offense, especially at, wide receiver, running back, etc. But you can scheme them open with a smart offensive mind. It's hard to scheme to protect defensive players. There's a line where if you don't have enough talent, it doesn't matter. So we'll be interesting to see what happens. We got Dion saying you're the best on Mile High Huddle. I don't know about that, Dion, but making my head big. That's a nice little birthday fluff up for me. I appreciate it. So getting back to Sean Payton, really interested to see another big takeaway that I had yesterday from Sean Payton's press conference with the Broncos is that George Payton's here to stay, at least for now. A lot of talk when the Broncos were first pursuing Sean Payton that potentially Sean Payton would want to bring in his own general manager, somebody he's coordinated or had worked with in the past. Jeff Ireland is a name that sticks out in my mind. The director of college scouting there in New Orleans has done a phenomenal job with that New Orleans team, especially considering they are limited in draft picks. I don't really like their strategy of trading up for non-quarterbacks in the first round, but I digress. Chris Olave and Marcus Davenport, Saints would probably be in a better position if they didn't trade up for those guys, even though Chris Olave looks incredible. But I'd be excited for the pairing of George Payton and Sean Payton this year going forward. Obviously, if things don't work out this season, George Payton could be out of a job. Sean Payton could end up bringing his guy then. But excited to see George Payton here. The Broncos are going to need his prowess in that round 3 to round 5 range, where he does a pretty good job of college scouting players there. I think the Broncos have hit probably above average drafting there underneath George Payton. The jury's still out, I would say, on Nick Benito. I wasn't a big fan of the pick at the time, but jury's still out on him. But if you're talking about, Baron Browning, you're talking about Quinn Miners, you're talking about, of course, Damari Mathis, Greg Dulcich. I think all those guys probably hit above par or below par. Is that how you do golf? It's better if it's below par. They hit above average for their draft slots there. So excited to see what the George Payton can do this year with the Broncos having 2 third-round picks, 2 early thirds if they keep those. I don't think they'll keep both of those picks. And the 4th and the 5th round draft pick this upcoming draft cycle. We got our guide, Jacob Foster, coming in with the support. Jacob, this quiet one. Just a quick announcement while Jacob's here, because we always want to let Jacob know what's going on. Scott and I are going to be out from the 8th until the 15th. So we'll be back on February 16th. Scott is doing his favorite thing, which is scuba diving out there in Belize. He hasn't taken a vacation in like 8 years or something, he said, and I haven't taken a vacation since before Rona. I guess living out here in the Pacific Northwest during the summertime I went on like 8 backpacking trips last year. That's a lot of vacations, but I haven't gone anywhere for vacation. Everything's been, a 3-hour drive. God bless the Pacific Northwest and all the mountains stuff that I get to do out here. It's really, really fortunate for that. Dom coming in saying, good morning, Nick, buddy, in Broncos country. Hope your birthday was great. It was great. I had a good time. It was low key. Stayed at work late, getting everything together, but again, heading off to vacation. Safe travels. God bless you, buddy. Thank you so much. We appreciate you coming in and supporting us. So yeah, Sean Payton and George Payton, the Paytons together. I think George Payton is safe for this season. Will be interesting to see what happens. And Sean coming in saying in the press conference, I know I'm not this power hungry demon on a pedestal that a lot of people portrayed me to be. Sean Payton had the power to be that guy if he wanted to. I think that's why a lot of people assumed that would be the case. Now, him saying he's not a power seeking person is different than how it could play out, right? We want to see what the situation looks like as we gather more data. But right now, George Payton is still in the house. I think it's safe to say he's going to be here for this offseason. Scott and I had talked about it a good bit, that we wouldn't be shocked if the Broncos had moved on from Sean, or from it's going to be hard, from George Payton after the draft, after the Broncos draft class comes in. I'm guessing if we're taking Sean Payton's press conference yesterday at face value, it would be somewhat surprising now if they moved on from George Payton after this draft this year. So George is here this season, and something I've said on here before and on Twitter. If the Broncos are going to move on from Russell Wilson after this season, if he struggles again this year, if the locker room dynamic is not great, if the coach is not wanting to work with him anymore, then the Broncos are going to have to hit above average with their draft picks going forward to dig themselves out of the cap hill that will be the dead cap over Wilson's released contract that would be over 2024 and 2025. So George Payton probably back this season, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. So moving forward, Sean Desai going to have his interview with the Broncos today. I would say I'd be shocked at this point if he's not the hire for the Broncos as defensive coordinator. He interviewed with the Minnesota Vikings. He's now interviewing with the Denver Broncos. Sean Payton did really want, according to reports, really wanted Vic Fangio to be his defensive coordinator. I think one of the big reasons is because he thinks Vic's scheme is the way to go in today's NFL. A lot of people think that, but I think Sean Payton, standing back and watching it and being an offensive mind, I think he really appreciates what Vic has done in current landscape of the NFL. And the next best guy probably for that scheme would be Sean Desai. He's a handpicked guy from Vic Fangio, recommended from Vic Fangio. Didn't have an amazing season with the Bears when I think it was the last season of Jim Nagy and all that dysfunction out there in Chicago, but did a pretty darn good job with the being a defensive assistant and a defensive back coach out there in Seattle this season. Helped a lot with the development of Tariq Woolen out there and Kobe Bryant, the two rookie cornerbacks out there in Seattle. So we'll see. I think, unfortunately, I think it's pretty safe to say the Broncos are going to take a step back in terms of schematic innovation, losing Ejiro Evero to Sean Desai, but excuse me, but Desai is going to be a really interesting candidate here, and will be interesting to see if he's changed his scheme at all, especially up front. He was very static in how he generated pressure up front with the Chicago Bears. Not a lot of putting offensive linemen in binds or tough assignments where they, lining up guys to make their gap assignment, I guess, or their blocking assignment difficult, having to make a choice, putting them in conflict is what we talk about on the defensive side of the ball. But we'll see if he's changed it all. I think over the past 2 or 3 seasons, simulated pressures in the NFL have really become more in vogue, and what you can do to generate matchups up front with more hybrid players at linebacker and defensive line and nickel as well, really creating some interesting dynamics. And we got somebody saying there's a scammer in here. I don't see any scammers. This one. Yep. Sorry. Thank you for the happiness. We'll see you, Leela. Sorry about your stuff. I don't care about your investment, though. Unless you want to invest in the show. No super chats in here, so I don't really care. Except Gary. Gary coming to the super chat saying, good morning, Nick and Broncos country. Tired of Russell bashing, but that will stop when he starts winning. Got to play better. And I'm definitely, I'm sorry if you think I'm bashing Gary. He played bad last season, and the power dynamics were an issue last year. I think we can say that pretty definitively. Now, is he salvageable? Is he going to be as bad again next season? We don't know. Anybody's saying for sure one way or the other on that one. No idea. But we'll see what happens. Tiffany Silver saying $2 £2 out there. Say, Nicholas, what do you think of Desai Fangio scheme? Yeah, going to be a lot more match quarters defense. Cover 4, cover 6, 2 deep safety shells. Sometimes they'll rotate down into a cover 3 look, but it'll be lighter boxes, a lot of nickel personnel. And luckily, the Broncos will not have to change a lot scheme-wise. I think they're probably going to need to work on the defensive line, specifically with the edge setting of the linebacker, if they're going to be playing more 4-2-5 defense out there in sub packages, maybe some more dime look as well. I don't think we're going to see as much penny front up there, so maybe the defensive tackle body type might change. Maybe they'll let Draymond Jones walk in favor of somebody with a little bit more run stopping ability that can play 1 and 3 technique. But will be interesting to see what happens with Desai going forward and how much he's changed compared to what he was with the Bears in 2021. Football keeps changing. It's ever dynamic, and with the schemes that are running and the personnel you have is fluid. So will be interesting to see. One thing I will say about Desai is that I think he's a really good defensive back and coverage mind. Broncos are going to need to get some horses up front on the defensive line to run the scheme. Mentioned it already, and he's not the head coach, defensive coordinator yet, but he didn't do a lot to create matchups up front with the pass rush. You can still create matchups up front if you're not blitzing, if you line up guys, drop guys in certain areas, and especially if you have versatile pieces like the Broncos do on defense, specifically at edge with the likes of Browning and Gregory and Benito. I would like a little bit more versatility at the linebacker spot, a little bit more athleticism, so that way if you line somebody up in a mug look, standing up over the A gap on the gap between a center and a guard, that if they come, they're much more of a force than what the Broncos have right now, but definitely something to see. Adam Strange coming in here saying, did the Broncos get a new defensive coordinator? Not yet. Brian Flores to the Minnesota Vikings, Ejiro Evero to the Carolina Panthers. Broncos are meeting with Sean Desai today. Sean Desai seems like he's going to be the guy, but we'll see what happens. If it's not him, look out for Chris Richard, former defensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks, defensive backs coach and co-defensive coordinator last year for the New Orleans Saints. He's somebody that he did coach 1 year underneath Sean Payton in New Orleans. He's one that I would be keeping an eye on for the Broncos if they don't get Sean Desai. Jeff coming in here saying, good morning, Nick. Good morning to Jeff. Hope you're doing well. We appreciate you. Todd Smith coming in saying, morning, Broncos country. Always good to see you. And coming in here. And we got Urbanology saying, Russ still has talent. Hackett just couldn't hack it. A lot of things couldn't hack it last season, but hopefully this year will be better and we'll have a little bit more accountability and some continuity on the offensive personnel and getting a little bit better. God, we get more hack. It's hard to believe. A friend told me a secret behind his success. The success is don't come in here and scam me out. Can I get rid of this one? Let's delete that comment. Thank you. Adam Strange coming in saying, is Desai blitz happy with a 3-4? He's not blitz happy at all. So I would not worry about that up front. He's going to be much more of a static rushing 4, maybe sometimes 5, but keeping bodies in coverage. So we'll see. And Alessandro saying, I want somebody different. Never heard of him. He's a no-name. He's defensive coordinator for a year. I mean, Ejiro Evero was a no-name before he came to Denver, right? At least for those that aren't paying attention to the positional coaches out there in the league. But we'll see what happens. If Sean Payton wants him, I think right now we just got to trust Sean Payton's going to bring in the best staff possible. So we'll see what happens. And also got Frank coming in here saying, is Zimmer an option? Might be going to the Buffaloes. Broncos could have interviewed Zimmer without any knowledge to anybody. So that would be very interesting because he's not a part of an NFL team right now. So maybe him. I think the Broncos could also interview Steve Wilkes, former defensive coordinator and the interim head coach for the Panthers, been in the league for a number of years. So I believe he interviewed with the 49ers. That seems to be where he's likely to go, but things change constantly. So Zimmer is an option. We'll see what happens with him. I know he has a relationship with George Payton, obviously dating back to Minnesota. Maybe he's a dark horse candidate. Right now, I think he is most likely to be some sort of role on Deion Sanders' staff there out in Boulder for the Buffaloes. But Buffalo? What's Buffaloes? What's the plural for Buffalo? But I'm just kidding. I know it's not Buffalo. But will be interesting to see what the Broncos do at that spot. So we talked a little bit of Sean Payton today. We talked a little bit of obviously the Broncos defensive coordinator spot. And I don't know, is there anything else you guys want to talk about? I could run a mock here. Probably going to get out of here pretty soon. Got to get my bag packed and everything. A little bit slower show today and doing it solo, but kind of hard to run the show solo, talking as fast as I do. I probably need to take a coffee sip too, protect my voice there. But yeah, no, interesting news about the Broncos yesterday. Interesting to see Sean Payton coming in. this is his team. He came in there. He could have come in there and like whatever that movie is with Tom Hanks, came in, looked at everybody in the press conference room and been like, I'm the captain now. Sean Payton's ship, everybody. Denver Broncos is going to be interesting going forward. We'll see what happens with this staff this offseason. Defensive coordinator. Zach Strife also going to be the Broncos offensive line coach. Apparently very much an up-and-coming player. And we got Glenn Harris saying a 7-round mock draft. Okay, twist my arm, Glenn. Twist my arm. I'm going to have to pull up the mock draft simulator. So let's see how good I can talk and type at the same time. But yeah, really going to be an interesting offseason for the Broncos. They still be waiting for the defensive coordinator. Luckily, we have the offensive line coach now, so we'll see what happens there. I like to use the Pro Football Focus mock draft simulator because they do a pretty good job, I think, with it. Overall, I don't really always love their board, but the fact that I can change positional value, draft for needs, randomness in the mock draft, I always think is pretty interesting. So Broncos right now, they have 2 3s, a 4, a 5, and a 6. So 5 picks. I would assume that by the time the draft rolls around, they'll have more picks than that, but we'll see what happens there on that one. Dominique saying safe travels to Hawaii. Billy Ray Valentine coming in saying, has Payton takes Russ's office yet? I don't know about that. But we'll see. We got Roy Runner coming in saying, great podcast. Always enjoy your insights. Well, thank you. That's really, I really do appreciate that. We got a question from Frank saying, with letting Ejiro Evero go, did the Broncos get any comp picks? What do you think about the picks? We have to try to build this team. Broncos get no comp picks for Ejiro Evero. According to current NFL rules, which might change this offseason at the NFL team meetings, the only way you can get draft comp back is if you trade for a general manager or a head coach. There might be team president might also be included, but there's no such thing as trading coordinators in the NFL currently. So the Broncos get no picks for losing Ejiro Evero. And because he was only on the team for 1 season and he wasn't hired or promoted to another organization, the Broncos will not get comp picks back for him. Now, if the Broncos would have brought back Ejiro Evero for 2023, he was hired as a head coach next year. Broncos could have got, I think, 2 third-round compensatory picks. But alas, not the reality. The Broncos don't keep him hostage, and they move on. And we'll see what happens with the Broncos with their defensive coordinator going forward. Unfortunately, I think it's probably pretty safe to say they are going to probably take a step back on that side. But we said the same thing last year. Moving on from Vic Fangio to Ejiro Evero, probably going to be a step back. Broncos, they treaded water, if not slightly improved under Evero. Now, I do think the personnel was better last season than what Vic Fangio had for the most part. But I digress. Let's go forward here. I'm adding it to the stream. There we go. Hopefully you guys can see what's going on here. Maybe if I make it a little bit smaller, you can see more of the screen. So Broncos 7-round mock draft. We're going to get to it. I'll be honest. Typically I get to about 150 guys. So when we get to the end of the whatever round, it's like the 6th round, 7th round, there might be some pet picks for me in that, but the Broncos pick 67 and 68. Those picks will not change. The picks in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, their numbers will change when the comp picks are announced. But moving on here, we're now on the clock here with the Broncos picking at pick 67. Unfortunately, you have John Michael Schmitz go right before, Donald Wright go right before, Keanu Benton go right before, Deontay Banks go right before, Matthew Bergeron right there. All guys that, honest to God, if they were there, I probably would have taken them for the Broncos. But alas, this is where we are with this scheme. And, all right, this is going to be an interesting one for the Broncos. So we are now on the clock with the Broncos. Okay. It might not be a great fit for the Broncos, but he had a great job at the combine. He's a huge, massive athlete, a freak. Russell Wilson's going to have a hard time throwing the football over him at 6'8", but I don't care one bit. Get me the guy at right tackle here, especially in the 3rd round. I think this is too good of a value. I'm going to draft DeJuan Jones here, the offensive tackle from Ohio State. He's a really good player here for the Broncos in this part of the draft. After that, so now we're on to our pick 68. I would love to trade this one, but I don't think we have enough time to trade this pick. So we're looking over here, some names available. Isaiah Foskey, edge rusher. Cedric Tillman, I really like from Tennessee. This is a really good draft class for the cornerbacks as well. And, oh, man, somebody that I think would be really interesting for the Broncos. Pro Football Focus hates running backs, so he's pretty low here. But Devon Achane from Texas A&M, I think he'd be a really interesting piece for the Broncos on this team. But I'm going to go. I think this team could use some help long term at cornerback. Maybe this is such a good cornerback draft, and I think that Tyreek Stevenson. I was really impressed with him at the Senior Bowl as well. So, cornerback from Miami does a lot of chirping. This Broncos team might be moving on from the likes of Ronald Darby to save a lot of cash this season. And I think long term, Damari Mathis's best role is more of in the slot. So I move on and I take Stevenson there from the University of Miami. Really interesting player. I think he's going to be a good one. So now we're on the pick here at pick 188 for the Broncos. And oh man, my goodness, this is a great pick for the Broncos right here. Steve Avila played great for the Texas Christian University Horned Frogs, had a good Senior Bowl. I think he's probably going to be going somewhere in the early to mid round 3 is where I'd peg him. But I think this is a potential day 1 starter there for the Broncos at left guard. So coming out of this, man, I didn't think we'd have any chance at drafting offensive line talent for where you guys were going to be looking for it. But here we are. Some really good pieces for the Broncos on this line up front. A starting guard and a starting right tackle. I mean, hey, folks, we're cooking with gas. That's really exciting. So now we're up front here with the Broncos. Once again, we are looking at potentially running back. We're looking at potentially defensive line. We're looking at potentially wide receiver we haven't taken yet. Interior defensive line. Oh, this one's too easy. This is a cheat code. Julius Brents should not be down here. I already took a cornerback. Okay, I'm going to skip that Julius Brents is down here because this is obviously a cheat in the system. He's not going to fall all the way down to 167. He's going to go in the top 100, no doubt. So let's pretend he's not there. I don't think that one is fair or makes a lick of sense. Best guy for here, in my opinion, is going to be Colby Wooden. It says he's listed as an edge rusher, but really he's more of an inside-outside pass rusher, playing at about 280. If you're going to be playing, trying to get after the quarterback, he can play some 4-eye. He can play some 3 technique early on. He can get after the quarterback. Really interested in him going forward. As a sub-package pass rusher type, and we're talking about the 5th round here. Hell yeah, sign me up for that in the 5th round. Glenn Hare coming in saying, Nick, what are your thoughts on Isaiah Foskey out of Notre Dame? I'm not a big fan of Isaiah Foskey as far as a first-round pick. If he's available in the 3rd round and the Broncos take him, that's fine. I think he's super stiff in his lower half. He's got very little bend. Really productive at Notre Dame. Actually surprisingly good in coverage as well, kicking out into space for his size, but he's one that's will be interesting to watch. I think the first round hype is baloney, but mid to late day 2, that makes sense to me. Jeremy Shawn, any good centers? Joe Tippmann from Wisconsin is a really good center. I didn't even see where he went in this one, if he's even available, but he's up there. And then obviously John Michael Schmitz from the University of Minnesota. He had a really good week down there in Minnesota. Not an elite mover, not an elite pass protector, but really strong, good player in the run game. He'll go probably somewhere in the top 50, in my opinion, in this class. BK saying we need to draft a quarterback. Really terrible quarterback draft class, BK. After the top 4 this year, there's a massive, incredible drop-off in talent. So unfortunately, that's where we're at. Glenn Harris saying, any chance Browning gets moved back to linebacker, or you think he's made it home at edge? I would love to see Brandon Browning get utilized more across the defensive line in pass rush situations where he could line up at edge in some plays, but also as a stand-up A gap linebacker in some pressure packages. So right now, I think he's probably best at edge, but definitely a chance that he could get moved around and begin in sub packages where he could be dropping into a hook zone, or he could be line up in man coverage against the linebacker, or he could be delayed blitz or blitzing from an A gap or even a B gap on a twist and stunt kind of look. I would be very interested in that for Browning rather than pure off ball or pure edge. I think in today's NFL, hybrid players, especially ones that you don't know if they're going to come or go in pass rush, are huge to create mismatches. I mean, you can get guys completely unblocked with only sending 4 if you do a good job with how you create those pressure packages. So would be very interested in that for the Broncos and for Baron Browning. So now we're up here for the Broncos. Again, we're picking at pick 231. This is the last pick of the Broncos in this class. We still have not taken a running back. We still have not taken a can I look for positions here? I'd love to get a running back late. I think the Broncos need running backs really badly. Not really impressed with any of these running backs. So let's pretend I didn't say that. Tight end's another one here for the Broncos I'd be interested in. Okay, I'm going to go with a guy here that I've been impressed with a few years. He's kind of a pet of mine. I know he's pretty low here. We'll see if he gets drafted, but I've been impressed with Braden Willis from Oklahoma. He is a special teams ace. There was an interview with the current Oklahoma head coach, Brett Venables, who just went on and on and on about how good Willis has been. He is going to be able to play your H-back role, your tight end role, and going to be essentially an upgraded version of Andrew Beck on this team. I believe that in order to maximize Russell Wilson going forward, you're probably going to have to play more under center, heavier personnel looks, and pass with a fullback even. And I think Willis is a great option. Apparently, he's a great locker room guy. Again, four-way special teams player. So I'm going with Willis here in this one. And I think that's... Are we up again? Oh, shoot, man. I guess I went a little early on Willis. I thought that was it. Did I not take him? Oh, we have 231. So that was the 5th? Okay, I'm confused. The Broncos have some 7th here. I don't know what's going on. But that's the name of the show, folks. Nick doesn't know what's going on. We have a couple options here. Oh, man. Michael Wilson and Jalen Reed. Shouldn't be here. Jaden Reed, probably one of the best wide receivers at the Senior Bowl. Special teams player of the year in the Big Ten 2 years ago. Really good returner, a dynamic player. I would be over the moon to have Jaden Reed this late. This is a pretty early mock draft. Did I do a trade by accident and not even know? Did the Broncos do a trade somebody? I swear to God, I don't remember having 2 7th-round picks. I think this big board I think the draft might be wrong here from PFF. Do the Broncos have 2 7ths, folks? I thought they had only a 6th. They had the 6th from Pittsburgh. I think that the mock draft simulator isn't right here with those 2 7th-round picks. But I digress. Jeremy's saying we have 231 and 243. Huh. I thought the Broncos only had a 6th-round pick and the 7ths were all gone. I don't know. I'll have to do a little bit of research on that. But we appreciate you guys coming in here. Hope you're doing well. I'm going to have to see what's going on. I thought the Broncos didn't have any picks after the 6th round of the season because of the trades they've made over here recently. Yeah, according to Tankathon, the Broncos only have their last pick is 196, and that's also true on the transactions website. So I don't know what's going on here. I guess we'll see what plays out. There's a lot of debate on those Broncos last 7th-round picks being going to, like, I think Detroit might have one of them as a kickback in the trade we made a few years ago for Trent Holiday. I think Stephen Weatherly might be involved here. Jonas Griffith, there's some trades of future picks as well. So I don't know. I don't think the Broncos have 231 and 243 though, folks. So maybe this is a reality when the Broncos do eventually get to the draft, traded that 6th-round pick to get 2 7ths, but I don't think that's actually the case. So there's your mock draft, folks. DeJuan Jones probably shouldn't be there, but he fell. Tyreek Stevenson gave me a D+. Sorry, he's a good player there. I probably would have taken Julius Brents if I had known he'd been there, but I digress. Steve Avila, great pick there. Broncos, 2 offensive line starters there. Colby Wooden getting after it. He says edge rusher here. He's interior defensive line, inside-outside guy. Braden Willis, and then Jaden Reed. So adding to the offense a lot, but also adding some core players to the secondary and rotational players to the secondary and the defensive line. Getting after it, just like we did today. We went long today. I didn't think I'd be able to go this long. Appreciate everyone coming in. We got Mandango saying have a great time in Hawaii. Glenn Harris saying enjoy the vacation, Nick. We have 247 from Minnesota, but not 231. I'll look it up. I'm not sure what's going on. And saying no 7th-round picks. Last pick is 6 from the Steelers. That's what I thought too. But there's a lot of like conditional picks that like, oh, you have to send the 7, but you don't have a 7 yet. So which 7 are you sending? Because you acquired some in the future, blah, blah, blah. So we'll see how it plays out. But guys, that's got to do it for me. My voice is starting to get a little hurt, a little hoarse out here. Make sure you're following me on Twitter at Nick Kendell MHH. Also follow us at BFB_pod and at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, follow us at Mile High Huddle Pod and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. And as the ticker says there underneath, please subscribe, like, and share over on YouTube. Really appreciate everyone coming in today, keeping me chugging. Last show until a little over a week from now. Hopefully Scott and I will return in one piece. Hopefully we don't come back looking like lobsters enjoying the sun. Again, shout out to everybody wishing me a happy birthday yesterday. It really does mean a lot. I turned 30 again. I think I can say that joke now. So staying healthy, staying alive. You guys, and I know it's the off season now and everything, and things could get slowed down a little bit, but make sure you're still continuing to choose kindness and compassion. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next week on the 16th. But until then, go Broncos.